And you can go down and buy wood and burn it, but it won't be as reliable of an end product over the long term. And we're not talking 2 or 3 years, we're talking siding that is never maintained. And so it's expected to be stable for 100 years.
Wow. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Source Snack Break. I am Ren with Source. Before we get started today, it is June 24th. I'll explain a couple things about the webinar tool before we get started. So you're all muted automatically, but you do have access to the live chat there on the right. So you can pop in your favorite emoji to try it out. You can also use the live chat to ask questions or comment, and we'll make sure we answer any questions you have. So bring it on. The more the merrier. We're also going to send you a recording of this webinar after the presentation is over, so you can reference it or send it to a friend. So today's guest is Bill with Nakamoto Forestry. I am super excited to have you. Bill, how are you? And can you tell us a little bit about yourself and about Nakamoto Forestry before we dive in?
Okay, sure. I'm a carpenter's son. I carpentered for about 10 years after apprenticing under my dad. And my grandfather was a contractor, and my great-grandfather was a carpenter as well. And then I got sidetracked and went to college and got a corporate job and made my way back to construction. And growing up in Oregon, I never expected to be in the wood industry because it was during the spotted owl era. But here we are, and this is the modern wood industry. It's a sustainably harvested niche wood nowadays.
Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit about what is Nakamoto Forestry as a company?
Sure. So Nakamoto Forestry is the largest siding mill and flooring mill in Japan. They have about a 30% market share for just regular siding. And the original mill, Mr. Nakamoto's family has been in timberland management and millwork for at least 3 generations that we've been able to find. And they are from the Hiroshima region in Western Japan that just happens to be the siding capital of Japan. So the heat-treated wood originates from the inland sea historically. And so that's the largest market region in Japan for natural wood siding, and especially the heat-treated siding. So they've just grown over the last several decades as the market has transitioned from contractors buying locally milled wood and burning the wood on the job site. Over the last several decades, it's transitioned to lumber yards and lumber mills supplying wood that's ready to install.
Wow. And so, what is your connection with the Nakamoto family?
So I started out in the reclaimed wood world in terms of lumber, and I had set up distribution in Japan for Pioneer Millworks, and one of our customers was the Nakamoto family for a related wood product, and we were looking. I was looking for the next new thing, and I'm a wood fiend, and I went to high school and college in Japan, and I've known about the yakisugi since I was 16 years old. And I went to one of my customers and asked him, can you introduce me to a yakisugi mill? I'd like to explore this. And he said, well, you're already doing business with them. So I got an introduction to the president, Mr. Nakamoto, and I explained to him there's a little buzz in the Western market for the yakisugi. And his eyes got big. He said, foreigners are interested in yakisugi? Why? So in Japan, it's very old-fashioned. Their market has transitioned to engineered siding, cement board over the last few decades because production home builders have taken over. But recently, there's been a push the last couple of decades for sustainability and for wholesome building materials because people spend a lot of time in their houses, and so they don't want to be surrounded by chemicals. And also with modern design, there's a lot of concrete and steel, and to warm up the space aesthetically. People are going to wood more and more.
Nice. So let's get into it. What is yakisugi, and can you explain the sort of wording difference between yakisugi and shou-ban?
Sure. Okay. So yakisugi is it's a Japanese heat treated wood product. And humans have been heat treating wood for millennia, since before the written record started, whether it's spear tips or whatever, fence posts burned and then put upside down, or and there's all types of technology in Portugal, in Northern Europe and Finland. There's the Finnish heat treatment technology. In China, there's carbonized wood. But the basic premise of heat treated wood is that wood itself is about 90% lignin and 10% hemicellulose, approximately. Sometimes more than that. But the heat treatment burns off the hemicellulose. And hemicellulose is what microorganisms such as fungi, which cause wood rot and mildew, and also termites, that is what they metabolize. And so
it's basically like a sugar. It's like a sugar.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. And so by heat treating the wood, it has less propensity to rot. Additionally,
there's nothing for them to eat.
Exactly, unless you introduce an oil finish.
Okay.
So, also it has other effects. And the Japanese heat treatment technology is a low duration, high temperature. So 2 or 3 minutes at a couple of 1,000 degrees. Whereas the Finnish heat treatment is 3 or 4 days at about 400 degrees Fahrenheit. Wow. So it's a slow, the Finnish, other heat treatments are mostly slow processes. The Japanese heat treatment is a flash burn. And so that dictates millwork parameters. You can't just burn any kind of wood. It has to be prepared properly.
Got it.
And
before we get into that, can you explain the difference between what yakisugi means and shou-ban means before we go on?
Sure. Yeah. So the word shou-ban, I heard that word several years ago, and I didn't know what it was. And I was like, what is this? I've never heard that word in Japanese. And then I saw it written, and it's like a combination of Japanese and Chinese. And we did some research a few years ago to find where the term came from. And the best guess we have is that Professor Fujimori Teranobu, who has been instrumental in introducing the technology to the West, he had regular visitors from Cal Berkeley, mostly graduate students interested in Japanese construction materials and materials history. And one of them took the Japanese word yakisugi-ita, and they brought it home written, and they translated it with a dictionary. So they used the Chinese pronunciation of yaki, which is shou, and sugi, which is cypress, and then ban, which means plank. So in Japan, nobody has ever heard of that, and it's confusing, and it's kind of insulting because it's part of their culture.
Got it.
But it doesn't really matter. It's just a word.
Got it. Okay, so let's get into it. How does one make yakisugi? Start us off with like the type of tree that you use. Like, what is the process from taking something out of the ground and making it into yakisugi?
Okay, that's a good question because it is a holistic process. You can't. You can go down and buy wood and burn it, but it won't be as reliable of an end product over the long term. And we're not talking 2 or 3 years. We're talking siding that is never maintained, and so it's expected to be stable for 100 years.
Wow.
And so in order to achieve that, it has to be a very specific log selection and millwork and heat treatment parameter, which, first of all, cypress is the only species that has tested out for us. And there is some confusion between the cypresses and the cedars worldwide. They're the same. Cedars are within the cypress genus. But with yakisugi or shou-ban, the confusion, it's often called cedar, burned cedar in English. And I think that confusion originates due to a mistranslation about 150 years ago when Japan opened up. There are two native cypress species, and one was translated as cypress and the other was translated as cedar. The critical difference is dimensional stability. Cedars aren't dimensionally stable at the high temperatures. They check a lot more. But more importantly than that is a cedar has a paper-thin growth ring, whereas cypress has a thicker or a late wood growth ring. Cedar growth ring in cross-section is 3 to 5% of the surface area in cross-section, and cypress is 15 to 25%. And so what that means is a cypress will hold a soot layer for a lot longer than a cedar species will.
Got it. So like the layer is thicker. So when you burn that layer, there's more of it to sort of contain the stability of the tree. Am I understanding correctly? It'll
last 50 years. And if you burn Western red cedar, it'll erode, the soot layer will erode within 6 months, basically.
Wow.
And so anyway, it's siding, so we have to start with straight logs. Siding must be straight, and as long as possible, ideally. Lumber industry always wants to supply short or random lengths. Contractors always want 16-footers. So cypress grows fast and straight. So we buy grade A logs, and we mill a through and through resaw pattern. So the logs are milled through and through, also called simple sawn. The bottom half of the log is flipped upside down, or right side up rather. And it's important that the outside of the tree faces the outside of the structure. Otherwise, if the inside of the tree is facing out, it will absorb atmospheric moisture and the grain will rise up and delaminate. And so that's, it's actually the most common reason that siding fails in the West, especially T&G. It's random resaw pattern. A little more millwork attention paid will really make the siding last a lot longer. And I would argue that that's more critical than the heat treatment in terms of exterior siding application.
So what that looks like, designers, when you get samples of this yakisugi, all of the boards have the rings going the exact same way. Oh, good.
So here's the face.
Yeah.
And this is the outside of the tree.
Got it. So basically you're going with how nature has created this tree in general. Like you're working with science. We've got our first question here. Allison wants to know, is cypress considered rapidly renewable?
Rapidly renewable.
Kind of like bamboo, which grows really fast.
Right. It grows quickly. So cypress is a similar, the sugi cypress, and especially the sub species that we use specifically for exterior siding is fast growing. And our current harvest cycle is 80 years. But because a lot of smaller timberland operations are consolidating and they're not harvesting as much because fiber prices are low, we're actually increasing our harvest cycle to 100 years. Does that answer the question?
I think so. How fast does it grow from when you plant it?
80 years. So,
oh, wow.
so the trees being harvested right now on Mr. Nakamoto's land are actually planted by his grandfather.
Oh, wow.
But the important point with that is that it's not old growth. So we compete against red cedar, and most of the red cedar, especially the high grade, clear heart, vertical grain is what everybody wants. That's coming out of over harvested virgin forest in BC, and it's completely unethical. So, do you want to answer more questions, or should I keep going on the millwork?
No, keep going. So we've pulled the cypress out of the ground. We've cut it so that the rings are all facing the same way. Then what?
Yes. Then the wood must be air dried. It cannot be kiln dried because you can't heat treat wood twice. It becomes dimensionally unstable if you heat treat wood twice. So it has to be air dried, which increases manufacturing time. Then the wood is heat treated at high temperature for a couple of minutes, and then it's quenched. And it's critical for dimensional stability that the wood goes into the kiln and comes out of the kiln at the same moisture content.
Interesting.
Additionally, to get straight planks, we simple saw the planks and we have to use the center of them. So there's flat grain in the center, flat grain in the center, and angle grain on the edges. That'll get you a straight plank. It also can thickness parameter. It's a thin plank material by nature because moisture content in the center of the plank will equalize during the heat treatment. And if you use a 3/4 inch thick plank or a 4/4 or other thick stock material, it'll actually crook and crown and twist.
Wow. So this process is kind of like a magical process in that it creates sort of dimensional stability. It helps keep it flat, which is what dimensional stability is. It also burns off all that sugar so that it becomes sort of rot resistant. Is that correct?
Correct.
Sweet.
It additionally case hardens the surface of the wood, which prevents oxygen penetration. And so it slows down flame spread. Also, the soot layer, so carbonized wood has a higher temperature of combustion threshold than unburned wood. So that actually the Suyaki product of ours tests out to Class A without any fire retardant. Doesn't really change the fire retardancy.
Got it, because it's already like burned off what it could burn off.
Exactly, or it's just harder to get it going.
Got it. Can you talk a little bit about, once it comes out, there are like 3 different things you can do with it. You can leave it at that crocodile skin look, which I love, or you can scrape it once and then you can scrape it again. Can you talk a little bit about why you would do that, or what the look that you get is with that?
Sure. Well, it's a cosmetic decision. It's the designer's decision whether to use an unbrushed wood or to brush it lightly or to wire brush it. But what's important is one of the misconceptions in the West is that the wood has like levels of burn or levels of char, and that gets good search metrics with Google, but it's not accurate because the wood it's all heat treated. The yakisugi is a heat treated product by nature, and the finish is achieved by brushing afterwards. But even if the soot layer is brushed off, it's still heat treated, and so it really is a cosmetic designer's decision.
So it doesn't affect like the longevity of the product if you scrape it once or twice?
I think it will. It will. And what I've seen in Japan is that the unbrushed wood the soot layer will last about 50 years before it erodes off.
Wow.
40 to 80 year range, just depending on the region and how close to the ocean and the site orientation. And then after about 50 years, it looks like our brushed product, such as the top image and the right image on the slide. And then if the wood is exposed for another 30 years or so, then it looks like our wire brushed surface. So my expectation is that without any maintenance, and if you do maintenance, of course, it'll last longer, but without any maintenance, the unbrushed wood will last at least 100 years. And then the brushed wood products will last anywhere from 80 or 70 years on up is what I've seen in Japan. And the limiting factor is UV degradation. So without any oil finish or maintenance, and without a soot layer, UV exposure will break down the wood fibers. And then marine weather, or not only marine, but wind and rain will wash those degraded fibers off the planks, and the siding becomes thinner and thinner over the decades. But that's what I've seen in Japan. And in the West, most of our construction comes from a European maintenance culture.
We've got a question. John says, what type of maintenance is best if you are going to maintain?
None. I mean, if you don't have to do it, what do you? Is our take on it. But people are very focused on color, and they're spending a lot of money. And these aren't tract homes we're shipping to. These are people's dream homes, and they're very concerned about color. So if you want the color to stay the same, once the soot layer is brushed off, then there's no way to get out of a 5 to 15 year re-oiling cycle.
Okay, sweet. And so one of the things, what do designers always ask? They always ask you about cost. Can you talk a little bit about like the cost? Because I know it's gone into some commercial projects and has been very reasonably priced.
Most of 3 out of 4 projects we ship is the $6 to $8 per square foot range, including the oil finish. And we've got the direct distribution model to keep prices low, and also, and we're competing against red cedar. And we're not going after the high-end interior market in Manhattan or LA.
Right. Well, one of the things I love about this product is it's something that's been happening for many, like, as you said, like 100 years they've been making this. And so like you've got the system down, so you can really compete in terms of pricing because they're making so much of it, because this is the traditional material they just use.
Exactly.
Got it. Okay. So what are some things designers should keep in mind before I know designers I'm just so excited about this product. We're almost at time, but can you give us like a couple tips and tricks if designers are going to work with this product? What should they keep in mind?
Have a vision on what color you want.
Got it.
When requesting samples. But it's just wood. It's very important for everybody to understand this is just wood like any other, and wood is better than cement.
Got it.
The carbon footprint, and it's in my opinion more beautiful, and it's wholesome. It's healthy. There really are no issues, and as long as the millwork is stable, if the millwork's done right, it's a stable product that you're not going to have a claim or a callback on.
Right.
And it's really good for the owners of the project ongoing for the long term.
I mean, this is one of the only products you can tell your client, as long as you're chill with it aging, because it is a natural product, you won't have to maintain it. Like, I can't think of anything else that you can tell your client that.
It's maintenance optional,
right.
which is the term we use, but that just causes confusion.
Got it. But that is something that designers should keep in mind, is that it is a natural product, and as it ages, it will look a little bit different, but that is inherently something that makes it very beautiful.
Embrace the patina. So you've heard the wabi-sabi term. So do you want a monolithic painted wall, or do you want something living and breathing that will just get more and more beautiful over time?
Right. And so a lot of the structures in Japan just use this material, and they've been up for 100 years, and you can just see how it's aged. And so if you Google it, you can look and see what it'll look like. Yes,
but you have to Google it in Japanese.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. And I think you have some on your website you can check out.
Yes, our What is Yakisugi page has a historical gallery.
Sweet. Designers, if you want to order samples, I recommend you do. They come in this amazing box. You can order them on our website right now from Bill. You are located in Portland, though, and so you can send this anywhere. So designers, click on that for sure. Designers, if you have any more questions, type them in now, because as you can tell, Bill is an amazing resource about this product. He knows so much about wood. You know more than a lot of people. I love talking with you, Bill, because you know so much about this. It's not every day you get to talk about the cellulose content of wood, so I'm really excited about that. So
it's not concrete.
It's not concrete, no. And it smells amazing too, also.
We don't notice the smell anymore.
You don't notice the smell. That's pretty funny. I love it. Sweet. Well, designers, it was great to see you. If you'd like to register for another snack break, smash that register now button. And in the meantime, thank you so much for coming. Bill, it was great to see you. And I really hope we can do this again soon.
Yes. Thank you, Ren.
All right. We'll talk to you later. Bye.
Bye-bye.